This could decide the game.
4th and goal. And they're going to snap it, and it's Trey Burton who throws caught. Foles, touchdown. What a pass to MB! My goodness! Posterizes Baines and the foul!
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss! Struck him out! The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Fanatic show, rebranded here on DSM Media with myself and my co-host Matt McGinty. Give him a follow at Matt_McGinty. And guys, if you are not already, what are you doing? Subscribe, follow, whatever. Turn on notifications at DSM Media. You can give us a follow on Twitter at DSM_media. We're on TikTok, we're on Twitch, we're on everything. So check us out on all your social media platforms. Busy show today. Again, it's been a while. We made the transition full-time here on DSM Media exclusive, rebranded the show a bit. I was on vacation. You've been working, but we're back, and we're feeling better than ever right now as the Philadelphia Flyers make a splash over the weekend in a 3-team deal that lands them top D-man Ryan Ellis from the Nashville Predators. Jason Myrtetus joins the program at 5:10 to discuss that trade and to discuss the Flyers protected list that they threw out in the expansion draft, which players were left off of that list that he's surprised about. We'll get into all that with Jason in just a few minutes. The Phillies have very quickly turned things around, and it's a little bit how they've played. It's a little bit of what's transpired throughout the division over the last couple of weeks. But we're going to talk about how the Phillies are now only 2 games out of first place behind the New York Mets and have found themselves in an interesting situation here where they went from being sellers just a few weeks ago, just a few short series ago, to now being in a buyer's, market, buyer's position heading into the trade deadline, which is what, July 30th? We're just like 11 days away from the MLB trade deadline. Adam Schefter with an interesting report late last week about the Eagles and Deshaun Watson. Obviously the Eagles are the most equipped team to go out and get him with those potential 3 first-round draft picks in 2022, but we'll touch on that a little bit. The Bucks take a 3-2 series lead, have won 3 straight in the NBA Finals over the Phoenix Suns. We'll give our opinions on that series at the end of today's show. But first and foremost, Gint, how are you and how does it feel to be a Phaithful Fanatic again?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Just like you said, a little busy lately, but we're back. Obviously, you went on vacation too, so we're really going to start hunkering down, getting back on almost every day. But I've been good, coaching still, obviously, but the TBT started, so I've been locked into that. It's always a fun time to watch that stuff, but yeah, the Phillies have been awesome. Really keying into baseball, so it's been a good time.
One thing we're not keyed in on right now, again, is hockey. That season has passed us now. The Flyers missed the postseason after locking up the number 1 seed in the bubble, 2 seasons ago now, which is still, that bubble wasn't even a year away. So it's crazy how they've played 2 seasons or whatever you want to call it from the restart since then. But that's where I want to start. I want to start with the trade that transpired on Saturday. A trade that, a lot of it went under. This came out of nowhere is what I'm trying to say. It went under the radar was what I was trying to get out of my mouth. The words I was trying to get out of my mouth. Someone hit me up when I was at a graduation party and was like, dude, the Flyers just traded for Ryan Ellis. So here it is. It's a 3-team deal, essentially. The Flyers trade Phil Myers and Nolan Patrick to Nashville in exchange for defenseman Ryan Ellis. The Predators get Myers and Patrick back, but then they turn around and flip Nolan Patrick to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for center Cody Glass. Again, you had said earlier, probably something with that, something how the salary cap to make the money work with that deal. That's why Vegas was added into that deal as well. And just my thoughts before we get Jason Myrtetus on here from 97.5 The Fanatic, to dive deeper into it and, give the viewers a much better outlook on it and tell us what we're getting right now. The thing for me is after Niskanen retired, he left a glaring hole on the blue line for the Philadelphia Flyers last year. And it was a young, every pairing was young, whether it was Sanheim, Myers, Provorov, Ghost. They brought in Gustafsson, and people were wondering if that would change things. It didn't. They were a turnover machine. It then turned around and hindered the goaltending performance and really, messed with Carter Hart's performance and head as well. So now Chuck Fletcher fills a glaring need as that number one D-man to pair with Ivan Provorov. And here's what I can tell you about Ryan Ellis. The dude just chews up ice time. He chews up minutes, guys. He plays over 23 minutes per game. That's what he averaged last season at least. And he's good in every facet. And the way that he plays so many minutes is because he can do so many things. He's good on the rush. He's an excellent passer on the blue line. He doesn't turn the puck over a lot. He has a hard shot from the top of the point, which means he's great on the power play. He's great on the penalty kill. So he's going to be playing a ton of time for the Philadelphia Flyers. And he has found himself obviously on their protected list from the expansion draft from the Seattle Kraken. I can't believe that's even a team name, but I'm excited. Being a West Coast defenseman, I don't get to see a lot of Nashville Predators games, so I haven't seen a ton of Ryan Ellis hockey in my lifetime and in his career. And he said the same thing about the Flyers the other day. He said he made a statement kind of like, you're well aware of the talent that the Philadelphia Flyers have, but them being an East Coast team and us being a West Coast team, we only see them twice a year. So everything's different for him. And it's going to be very interesting to see how he fits in here in Philadelphia, how he can Ivan Provorov had a down year, just as every defenseman did last year, how he can kind of revamp that blue line. And like I said, it was the biggest need. It was the biggest hole that this Philadelphia Flyers team had last year. They were ugly. They were tough to watch sometimes, too, because the amount of unforced errors and the turnovers in the neutral zone that just led to fast breaks for the other team, leaving Carter Hart on an island, 2-on-1s over and over again. It was rough to watch. So now to bring him in, you finally have a solidified number one D-man on your roster. And I don't think Chuck Fletcher's done. He's rumored to be going after, the Flyers and Vladimir Tarasenko are rumored to being paired up shortly. The Flyers still have that 13th overall pick or 14th overall pick, whatever it is, in this year's draft. They're dangling Morgan Frost. They're dangling, if the Kraken select Tarasenko in the expansion draft and then they turn around and send him to Philly for whatever it is, it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next couple of days. But again, what are your just initial thoughts? I know you are a little checked out of the hockey world, as I have been, but
I don't know how much I've checked in. But I mean, when you talk about filling biggest needs, probably something in this city that never happens. As you look at the Phillies bullpen and you look that the Sixers make no types of moves to ever improve. But that's besides the fact for now. That's the biggest thing in sports, always improving, right? And they're finding a way to improve. So it's definitely a big boy. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a huge Ryan Ellis fanatic, but that's why we have Jason Myrtetus today.
Exactly. That is why, I am a Flyers fan, and you are as well. But of the four major Philly sports teams, they are in the basement of that order. And I am not the most knowledgeable person about hockey. So that's why we do have an expert in himself coming on shortly. Phillies, right before he jumps on, what have your thoughts been since, heading into the All-Star break and shortly after with this taking 3 or 4 from the Marlins?
Yeah, no, we'll talk about more of the poll that we put up, but I mean, dude, it has to be the bats, right? I'm pretty sure the Phillies are close to putting up 7 runs a game in the month of July. And I know that's kind of like flawed because there's been a couple 15-run games, 13-run games, but I mean, dude, the bats are alive, which is what we kind of expected coming into the season, all season long, that the lineup was going to get you a couple wins, which it has. I don't really know if I still trust the bullpen. I don't think anyone really does, but I know we had that as an option on our poll, but it's been really cool to see. You want to see runs when you watch baseball, especially a fan like me that can get checked out pretty quickly. So, I mean,
short attention span over there again?
Not even attention span. I just get bored really quickly.
Short attention span.
Yeah, sure, whatever you want to say. But they grabbed 2 wins yesterday. JT Realmuto put a game to bed in about 10 minutes, which was nice.
So this is going to sound like very like degenerative, like I guess is the word I could use. But I went out to the bar yesterday with a couple of my buddies after me and Scotty wrapped up turf talk, and I didn't even like realize what time it was because the Phillies were starting that 10th inning. And literally I turn around and I see them celebrate. I'm like, the game's over? Like I didn't even see it. I was like, I didn't even know it started. It went over kind of like that. But I'm with you. You know, we put out that poll last night and we'll get to those results after we get Jason wrapped up out of here. But I agree. It has to be the bats. But we'll dive into more of that later. The only other, hockey topic that I want to get his opinion on with the Flyers, and the only other thing that I can really speak on is that I am surprised with that protected list that the Flyers put out there for the expansion draft that JVR was not protected. Voracek's not protected either, but I think a lot of people kind of saw that coming. JVR with the year he had last year, I know his first year in Philly was a little underwhelming, but then the year he had last year, he was one of their most steady players through a disappointing season, and to leave him off of that list was kind of surprising. But guys, here he is, 97.5, the Fanatics, Jason Myrtetus. Jason, what's going on, man? Thank you for joining the show.
What's going on, boys?
Not much, man. So me and Gint were just saying, kind of been checked out of the hockey world for a little bit. A disappointing year with the Flyers after securing that number 1 seed. Had you on a pregame show before Game 7 versus the Islanders, and then ever since then, it's kind of been a little downhill. But they make a splash this weekend. They kind of reel me back in the middle of July for a minute. So first and foremost, can I just get your initial thoughts on this Ryan Ellis trade? And what are the Flyers, like what can Flyers fans expect to see from Ryan Ellis? What are the Flyers getting in him?
First of all, what's the matter with you checking in and checking out? Either commit or don't commit.
I'm committed, but hockey's
committed. You ain't committed. That's bullshit. Your level of commitment's like, having 3 girls at the same time.
That's messed up, man.
Anyway, I'm kidding. But what was your question again? I'm sorry.
What were your initial thoughts on this trade, and kind of what are the Flyers getting in Ryan Ellis?
It's one that I kind of saw coming. We talked about it on our Friday episode of Flyers Daily, that the focus had shifted from Seth Jones to Ryan Ellis when Seth Jones wasn't going to commit to signing an extension. And they talked to Nashville about Ellis back in the season before the trade deadline, before Nashville decided that they weren't going to sell at the deadline. And ultimately they didn't, and they made the playoffs. And he's a guy that they had an eye on for a while. And that groundwork that they laid back in during the season in March was really kind of, I think, what propelled the deal to get done now. Because, David Poyle, the GM of the Nashville Predators, knew there was interest in Ryan Ellis. There was a lot of talk that there was interest in Matthias Ekholm, and I think there was initially, but while that was a fit, it wasn't a perfect fit because he's a left shot guy. Can play a little bit of the right side, but they were clearly looking for a right shot, right-handed D that could handle the amount of minutes and workload to play top pairing. And Ellis fit the bill, and he's cost certain. He's under contract for 6 more years, so all those elements, I know, and I had mentioned this before too, Chuck Fletcher didn't want to solve this problem kind of the way he did initially with Matt Niskanen with a Band-Aid. He wanted a long-term solution, and with Ellis, you have it. And as far as what he is as a player, he's a guy that can play both ends of the ice really well. It's not that he plays one end, like he's not, you don't go, he's really good defensively, but he's not that good offensively. He's all right. He's really good at both ends. I mean, he's great offensively as a defenseman, and he's really good defensively. He's been a top 5 right-handed D in the league for, a minimum 4 of the last 5 years. So, and he's a guy that can handle the workload. So you're getting a really good player. And I think the one thing that maybe numbers or, just watching him play hockey, you don't get, that you don't know, you don't see, is that he is a high character guy. And so that's another element, adding, more leadership and character to that room and to the D-core. I think that's important. You saw the effect of Niskanen, who was a high character guy, and the effect that not only that he had on the team, not only that he had on Provorov, but he had on those other younger defensemen. So I think you're getting all those things and a better hockey player than Niskanen was.
Okay, yeah, you basically just kind of touched on my next follow-up question. Was we talked before last season, how the Flyers were going to miss Matt Niskanen, but I don't think, at least I didn't see them missing him to that extent last year. They were a very young defensive core. But my follow-up was like, how does a guy like Ryan Ellis change the dynamic of this young defensive core? How does he impact Ivan Provorov's game? Because he himself had a down year as well last year with an underwhelming performance from the defenseman on this team.
Well, first, let's just go on the Provorov part first. Provorov last year played with multiple different partners. I mean, there were stretches where he played with Sanheim. There were stretches where he played with Phil Myers. There were stretches where he was with Ghost or he was with Justin Braun. And I always kind of say that, to defensemen, it's kind of like offensive line. You need chemistry and you need consistency. So just to give an example of what I mean by that, if Ivan Provorov skates behind his own net with the puck and he's coming up the strong side of the ice, the left side, which is his side of the ice, and all of a sudden there's pressure and he's got to wheel the puck or drop the puck off to his partner. If you're playing with a guy with consistency like you did with Niskanen, you know where he is. You don't need to think. You don't need to look. None of that. But when your partner's constantly changing, you have to look. You have to think. And in that league, you don't have time to do that. You're dead man walking. So that's kind of the example, I think, how consistency and chemistry benefits Provorov. But then what it does is it also puts guys where they're supposed to be. Guys like Sanheim and Myers weren't ready to be top pairing guys in the NHL. They weren't ready to have to be on a shutdown duty to shut down lines like, Patrice Bergeron's line one night. The next night, it's Alex Ovechkin's line. The night after that, it's the Sidney Crosby line. The night after, every team's got a great line. So to handle that duty is a whole different kind of pedigree of player. And what it does is it slots those guys where they are suited to have success, not where they're suited to struggle. So that's the other part of it as well. While Niskanen was a good player, like you said at the beginning, I refuse to believe that he was that player, that he was that good, that his skill set. It was more chemistry, consistency, and slotting is what happened. And, and the team wasn't good either. And the forwards have to be better, but they defended too much. And, once it got on top of them, they could never get it. They couldn't pull the nose of the aircraft up. And we saw what we saw, and it was horrible. So I think, a guy like Ryan Ellis doesn't fix everything, but he's a big step in the right direction.
Another thing we wanted to ask you was, do you think there'll be more moves made? And if you do, what do you think they could possibly bring in?
Well, I think this is just the beginning. I mean, here's the fact of the matter. I mean, one of the best parts about the deal, other than the acquisition of the player skill set, character, and leadership that he brings, is what you gave up. I like Phil Myers. He's an athletic freak. Phil's issue was he didn't think the game very well. He wasn't there yet. And it's going to take time. And he may turn out to be a really good player. He's got the skills and he's got the athleticism to do it. Nolan Patrick is a high pedigree talent, but whatever it was, he just didn't have enough compete in him. And I hope that changes for him. I hope he's remains healthy and he goes on to have a great NHL career, and he's got some familiar faces along with him out there in Vegas now. But so they gave up two players, two young players, and both of them could end up being good players. So you gave up a lot of years, but you didn't give up the 13th pick. So that's still available. And that's a huge element. Picks and prospects, like young players on entry-level contracts and prospects not yet in the NHL, are worth even more right now as currency, because they don't make a lot of money in the flat cap world. So you still have that 13th pick. You still have a lot of your prospects. Yeah, you gave up two young players. One was totally found and wasn't even a draft pick, and Phil Myers was a free agent signing. And Nolan Patrick was, a lucky lottery situation where they moved up to number 2. It didn't turn out. And, they used those two players to get a top-handed, right-handed, right-shot D, which is one of those hard things to get and a very valuable piece in the NHL. But they didn't give up the 13th pick, so they still have that as currency. They still have a lot of young players, and I think this is just the beginning. I'm not saying there's going to be 10 moves, but I think we'll see at least 2 more moves of significance. And I think a lot of it will be predicated on the expansion draft. One of the things that is being widely reported, and I've heard as well, is that Seattle will select Tarasenko, and the Flyers are really in the mix to make a deal that involves Jake Voracek, St. Louis, and Seattle to land Tarasenko and also shed Jake's salary.
Okay, yeah, that was one I had coming up. I guess what I'll follow up with, I just have two more questions for you, Jason, before we get you out of here. But with these trade, if they do make a trade for Vladimir Tarasenko, and they made the trade for Ryan Ellis, and they're shipping out these young prospects, and Phil Myers and Nolan Patrick are still really young, what's the message you're kind of getting from the front office and Chuck Fletcher in making these deals? Is it saying we're trying to win now, or we're shipping the youth movement kind of out of here?
Well, I don't look at it as shipping the youth movement out. You have a ton of it. You do have Farabee, you have Travis Konechny, you have Travis Sanheim. A lot. You can't have a team of under 23-year-old players. Look at every team that wins the Cup. They have this balance of a young core. They have a
might have lost them there for a second. Sorry,
I think so.
Got a little technical difficulty here on the Faithful Fanatics. Let me get him out of there.
Wouldn't be a Faithful Fanatic show without it.
Yeah, we have had some major technical difficulties.
Some storms. There we are.
Is he back?
I'm back. I was going too, man.
All right, if you can kind of remember where that train of thought was taking you.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at teams in the NHL that have success, they have a young core, they have a middle core that 24 to 29, and then they have some high end players that are still above 29 years old. And that's how you have to build a team. You can't have just under 24-year-old players on your team. So you have to use those when you go into that mode of, okay, we need to restock the coverage. You're knowing that I'm not doing it so that all these players can come up at the same time and play together, because you can't contractually, you can't fit it that way. So you know that you're going to use some of those pieces as I've termed them, organizational currency, to help you with players now. And that's what they're going to do. So there's no abandonment of it. I mean, you still have Farabee, Konechny, you got young players, Sanheim, as I mentioned, and Provorov. But what you're doing is, the message to me is we're trying to win now. And what happened last year is totally unacceptable. And Chuck said it, we're making moves to make our team better, but also guys that are coming back here, they got to play better. They got to play, they got to stick to the system. They got to be more responsible on the ice. Everything is predicated and pointed towards a mindset of lowering the GAA, the goals against average in games. They gave up too many goals. And that's not just a defense problem. It's not just a goalie problem. That's a team problem, because defense in the NHL is also a 5-man unit. So everything is predicated on that. So I think there's going to be more moves. They got to grab now a second pairing right side defender, which I think they'll find, preferably somebody with some size and some meanness to them. They're probably going to find, backup goalie is definitely something that they have to fill. How they do that, there's a couple of different routes they can go. Veteran that was a starter, like a James Reimer or a Jonathan Bernier, or you can go younger goaltender, a Korpisalo, Linus Ullmark, that kind of thing. And then I think they're going to grab a guy that can maybe, definitely play on your third line, but maybe be your center on your third line. Morgan Frost is there. He could jump into that role. Is he ready for that role? That's a good question. We didn't get to see him this year because he got hurt, and he hasn't played more than a game and a couple of shifts since the pandemic hit.
Right. So my last question to you, Jason, is the Flyers, put out their protected list of who's protected from Seattle in the expansion draft. Were there any surprises to you? Who was left off the list? JVR was not protected. Jacob Voracek was not prected. What did you just think of the list?
I thought that maybe when they traded Patrick that they may protect JVR. They opted not to because they didn't want Seattle to take Aube-Kubel. Now people freaked out. They go, "Oh, what the hell's Aube-Kubel? Why are they afraid of losing him?" Well, they're afraid of losing him because they're trying to force them to take a higher salary player.
Yeah.
Whether that's Gostisbehere, Voracek, or James Van Riemsdyk, therefore allowing them more cap flexibility to do more things this offseason and turn the roster over in a different direction. So all in all, no, I wasn't surprised that they protected Aube-Kubel over James or Jake, or I knew Ghost wouldn't. I mean, Ghost went past the waivers this year and I don't. He could get selected. If he doesn't get selected, I would probably imagine that he'll be traded because I just don't feel like he's in the plans, with what they're trying to accomplish. So, not to say he can't play in the NHL, he can, but I think he'd be part of some kind of package deal, and he would be moving on anyway.
Awesome. At Jason Mert on Twitter, everybody. Go give him a follow. Jason, tell the people where they can find you on 97.5 The Fanatic, what days you're on air.
Day. I do Saturday from noon to 3. I'll be on this Saturday during the NHL draft second round. And then Flyers Daily, the podcast. You can get it on iTunes, Spotify, all the usuals. So, we've been kicking out episodes, and we're going to continue doing so. I think on Friday's episode, we're going to have Ryan Ellis on the show. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, guys, make sure to check that out at Jason Mert on Twitter. Jason, thank you so much, and I can't wait to talk more Flyers and hockey closer to October when I'm more checked back.
All right, dude. You get that Philly sweatshirt off. They're a career suck organization. And you got Sixers batter that have been in one final since '83, right? Haven't gotten past the second round after sucking for 4 years. Phillies, they're like the blue moon to have success.
At Jason Mert, everybody. Jason, thanks. Man.
All right, boys.
Thank you, Jason.
See you guys.
Got roasted there for a second, Ken. Am I wrong? Guys, tell me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong for being a little slightly checked out? Not that I'm checked out, like when the Flyers are still playing, I was watching the Flyers, but like it's the middle of July. I'm not, I'm excited about the Ryan Ellis trade, but I'm not, I'm not ready. I'm not hockey mode right now. Phillies are buyers, man. The Phillies are buyers. So here you go. Feel the heat. Feel the heat, guys. Guys, please continue to comment along with us. Will, I that was my next question. I put that up on the screen for a second, but that's where I was going to him next, but he kind of brought it up himself, and I think Tarasenko, then things would get interesting. Then if you bring in a top defenseman, Ryan Ellis, you bring in a true sniper, which is something, my college roommate is a huge, hockey fan, a huge Flyers fan, kind of above all the other sports. And the one thing he's been talking to me about for years is a true sniper. The Flyers have never had a true top line sniper, and you get that with Vladimir Tarasenko. So we'll be sure to keep an eye out for any Flyers trade rumors. The draft is coming up this weekend. So a lot to look forward to, hopefully, with the Flyers this season. But again, turning the page back to the Phillies. And guys, again, be sure to comment. We'll get to as many as we can. Join the conversation. Will says, it's been 75 since 75 for the Flyers, so arguments can be made all around. Yeah, Will, I'm not wrong, am I? I don't know, man. But anyway, so again, 3 weeks ago, maybe even closer than that, the Phillies were near the basement of a bad NL East division, preparing to be sellers at the deadline. I had George Ryder on the show with me one week, and we're talking about, what can you give up? I threw out Aaron Nola's name, just kind of as a chip to, be sellers. Now they've won 4 straight series. I think they've won 10 of 14 games, or whatever the number is now, 12 of 16, and they sit 2 games out behind the New York Mets for first place in the NL East. And again, find themselves in a prime position heading into the trade deadline to be buyers with their eyes on a pennant run. So last night's Twitter poll that I put out to the people, Gint, was this. Since what has been the biggest difference for the Phillies to make them go from sellers to buyers in just a few short series? A, the bats woke up. B, bullpen has become serviceable. C, starting pitching has been better. Or D, Joe Girardi's decision-makings and in-game management. Again, we touched on it earlier, and that's where the poll lies right now. 59% of people agree with us that option A, the bats have woken up, is the main reason that this Phillies team have turned things around, if you just want to take it from there.
Yeah, I voted, obviously. I already mentioned I voted. It had to be the bats. The Phillies are 10-4 in July, like you kind of alluded to there. And in a couple of those wins, they've given up 10 runs, 8 runs. So to me, it's just been a total revamp of the bats. They're putting runs. So I'm Scotty. Sorry, he caught my attention. So yeah, it's been almost like a heel turn. And obviously it's paying off. They won 2 yesterday, put up 7 more runs. in Wheeler's worst inning of the season. So to me, it has to be the bats because the bullpen's still not good. I'm still not a believer. And the rotation still is on the back end. And I mean, even Nola hasn't been great this year, but I'm still a believer.
I agree with you, man. If you go down everything, if you go straight down the list, I think the bullpen would be option B, would be my 1B there for what's been the difference. They haven't been, they're still scary as hell. I think they still need some work if Dombrowski can make any news at the deadline. They are linked to closer Craig Kimbrell from the Chicago Cubs, so that would definitely be a huge addition on July 30th. But the bats have woken up, in my opinion, and it's a collective. It's a collective effort. Guys have stepped up again. I've mentioned this throughout the course of the season, and why I was so confused how the Phillies, were struggling was they were injury plagued all throughout the lineup, all throughout the bullpen, but they've had multiple guys step up this year. The Ronald Torreses of the world, the Travis Jankowskis of the world. Luke Williams hits a walk-off home run. Nick Maton had his, came alive. Odubel Herrera, before getting hurt, finally woke up and secured center field for a little bit. Now, like I said, Jankowski can play that position a little bit now. They've had bats step up. They haven't been plagued by injuries and then they're getting killed after that. Actually, some of these guys are better in the field than their starters. Alec Boehm is missing time due to COVID right now. Ronald Torres is a much better infielder than Alec Boehm is defensively. So it's really interesting, but it's a collective effort with the bats, but it's guys that were struggling earlier in the year and even just a month ago that have really, heated up right now. JT Realmuto, since the All-Star break, or since his last 11 games, is batting just about 350, 8 ribbies, 8 runs, 2 homers, 2 doubles, and a triple. Andrew McCutchen, since May 1st, is batting over 250, 15 home runs, and 41 RBIs. He's top 10 in the MLB amongst outfielders in home runs and RBIs during that span. That is thanks to @RayDunBTB on Twitter for that stat. So guys have just Reese Hoskins, we got on him a few weeks ago again about, well, don't forget to write about the good things. He's kind of barreling balls a little bit better. He leads the team in home runs. Gene Segura is a hitting monster right now in that leadoff
Professional hitter.
Yeah. So he's batted over 300 all year long. And that's the biggest thing. The bats are coming alive, and it's guys that, kind of were underperforming earlier in the year have finally started to step up. And I just want to see this team get to the postseason. However, again, it's not just the reason I want them to be buyers. Do you remember our conversation when the Eagles had like 3 wins last year, but they had won like 2 straight. I forget whatever it was. And they were only like a game out of first place. And we were talking about, what was the discussion? The Jalen Hurts, or trying to win the division or just tanking for a draft pick. And, when you're in a division, no matter how bad it is, no matter if you truly see yourself as a championship contender or just a team that wants to get to the playoffs for the first time in a decade, I don't know what Dombrowski and this team views themselves as. But you do yourself and you do the paying fan a disservice when you have a chance to make a pennant run and make the postseason and you don't go for it. You are sitting in a position right now where your team is heating up and they have the bats and the top 2 to 3 starters to do it if you go and add some pieces. The New York Mets have come back down to earth a little bit. They dropped 3 of 4 to the stinking Pittsburgh Pirates. They should have dropped 4 of 4. I have props to them for coming back and winning that game 6-0 in the first inning yesterday. But they still dropped 3 of 4 to the Pirates. Their bullpen is struggling. I know that sounds crazy coming from a Phillies fan's mouth, but the Mets bullpen is really struggling right now. They've come back down to earth. And then you look at the other contender in this division who I thought was going to win this division in the beginning of the year, in the Atlanta Braves. They just lose Ronald Acuna Jr. for the remainder of the season. And no, I'm not happy about that. Like, that sucks for the Braves. That sucks for Ronald Acuna Jr. But as a Phillies fan, it does turn your attention to now the Phillies have a better shot to winning the NL East, right? So it's not just them. It's things outside of or things that are going on in their vision that had themselves in a position to win it. And with the Braves, I think right after the Acuna injury, they traded for Jock Peterson from the Cubs. And he's a nice bat in the middle of your order. He doesn't even come close to filling the shoes that Ronald Acuna Jr. has left in center field. And while I think Freddie Freeman is the leader of that Braves ball club, Ronald Acuna Jr. was the heart and spirit of that ball club. He was the best player on that ball club. And now they're without that. So they're slipping down the standings in the NL East. The Mets are coming back down to earth, and the Phillies have won 4 straight series, and the bats are alive. So you have to go for it. Dave Dombrowski, you have to go for it. I know you like to win. Go for it.
Especially if you look at it from a different perspective, and if you were this really young team and you could really use one more player to like kind of build your, I guess, quote unquote program, and the Phillies aren't in that stage. They signed Bryce Harper to 13 years. They just signed JT Realmuto. They're not these young cats that don't deserve a chance to make a postseason run, I'd say. So yeah, I've never been a fan. I know you and I were on the same page with the Eagles, especially. I'm not a fan of I don't want to say throwing games, but intentionally losing so that you get a better draft pick as opposed to making the playoffs. It's never been in the realm of me. That's why I hate Sam Hinkie, but it's kind of where I stand with that situation as well.
And here's my thing, and I had posted this to Scotty, and I want to, kind of open this up to the viewers as well. And again, I'll get your opinion on this. Baseball is weird to me, right? Like if you can make the postseason, I know that, the Dodgers have this incredible roster and their lineup and their pitching staff, and they're these world beaters. And the Padres are a really, really good team. And then you go, but like if you look at the top of the NL right now, the San Francisco Giants are the best team in baseball record-wise. The Boston Red Sox are like the best team out in the AL right now, or one of the best teams, the hottest team out in the AL right now. And in baseball, I just feel like, especially in a playoff series where you don't use all 5 starting pitchers, where you just use, 3, you use 4, I would say, you have a chance to beat anybody. And I have firmly believe this, and I've said it since they brought Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto here, and Andrew McCutchen and Didi Gregorius and Gene Segura. This lineup is good enough. I firmly believe that. Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler, yeah, they're not the most consistent, but if they can get hot in a postseason run, if you can secure up the back end of your bullpen, and if you can grab a low-end 4th starter, you got Eflin as your 3rd. Baseball is a sport to me where if you can just get to the dance, you have a chance to win it all. I firmly believe that. I don't know what you guys out there think, getting what you think about that, but it's different. It's, football is the other sport because it's one and done, right? But when you look at the NBA and the NHL, 7-game series, 95% of the time, the better team wins if both sides are healthy. Baseball is a 7-game series where who the hell knows? It's just different to me. So when I watch the Phillies take, 2 of 3 from San Diego, and then I watch them take 2 of 3 in Boston before the All-Star break, and I watch them beat some of these teams, it's like, yeah, they can sure as hell with this lineup compete in the postseason if they can get there. It's what it comes down to is the bullpen in the postseason, and that's what I think Dombrowski should be focusing on. Now, again, I want your thoughts on that, and then I'll ask you another question.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think it's a very momentum sport. When you're playing well, you're playing really well, and when things are going bad, it looks atrocious. You probably see it a lot too. It's been told to be a roller coaster sport. So, I mean, if you get hot at the right time, like you just named all the guys we have in the lineup, that if everything clicks at the right time, it could be something very scary. And then, like you mentioned, we have 2 guys at the top of the rotation that are a little inconsistent, but if they're pitching like on their best day, they're very, very good starters in the MLB. So you have to go, like you said, grab one more arm for the rotation, and who knows what happens. But let me just bring this up real quick. I feel like every single year at this time, Cole Hamels. Dude, my cousin, he lives in Texas. He's a Phillies fan. He's a Phillies sports fan.
Yeah, because
he called me. Yeah, he apparently was spotted in Philadelphia.
Who, Cole Hamels?
Yeah.
Isn't Cole Hamels like 55 years old now?
Yeah, but
I'm
dude,
sure he's in his late 30s, but no, it's done. Dunzo. Mm-hmm. No, Cole Hamels, that is not the solution to helping the Phillies get to the postseason anymore. Maybe 4 years ago, when it was talked about, yeah, I wanted Cole Hamels. Now, no, forget that. When I look at this market, Starling Marte is the one that's, the Phillies have been linked to with Miami Marlins because they don't think they're going to be able to re-sign him or reach an extension with him. So they may be looking to move him. He would sure as hell lock up the center field position. There's another name thrown out there the other day. Was it Byron Buxton is another name that is floating around there with the Phillies. But then you look at Chicago. That's another thing. The Phillies took 3 of 4 in Wrigley versus the Cubs, right? That's when the Cubs had lost like 10 straight, but whatever. And they're blowing it up right now. But there's 2 names that are being floated. They already traded Jock Peterson, and then Craig Kimbrell, the closer, and Chris Bryant, the guy who can play third base, first base, center field, out, whatever. He has been a guy I've wanted in the red and white pinstripes for years. I would love to get Chris Bryant, but let me ask you again, what is the bigger need? Chris Bryant's the bigger name. That's the guy we would love to have. And obviously, I want it to happen. But when you think, he can play center field, so that would change everything. However, Chris Bryant playing third base or center field, or Craig Kimbrell closing games for the Phillies, what propels them closer to a pennant run?
I want Chris Bryant. I mean, like you said, I'll take either. But if I had to pick one, especially if he could play center field, like you said, and aren't him and Bryce Harper like boys?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure they're like really close. And at this point, you should be doing whatever you can to make this guy happy. It's what we talked about all offseason when it came to signing JT and Sanjay. He was wearing the shirt. He was getting on a plane with his jersey on. So to me, you have to make him happy. And I think that will make him most happy. But obviously you want a closer, and Craig, I can never say his name, Craig Kimbrell. Dude, I can't physically, like, my mouth can't say
Kimbrell.
I know. I always say Kimbrell.
You just
Craig
did.
Kimbrell. Craig Kimbrell. Yeah. I would take Chris Bryant.
I don't know, man. Listen, I would love Chris Bryant. Okay, if that's the trade that happens, I'm all on board. I'm just saying, like, what's the bigger need? Closer's the bigger need. However, the fact that Chris Bryant can play center field is kind of what changes things. So, not having, I know Odubel was playing better, but I know a lot of people dislike Odubel for his off the field issues. Jankowski, unless you really think he's the guy, it's nice, it's fun right now. No, right? The upgrade from Travis Jankowski to Chris Bryant is monstrous. So I guess, that then the lineup becomes even more dangerous. But Kimbrell at the back end, if you can somehow, there's no way they're getting both, but it'll be interesting to see what Dombrowski does. He had an interview with John Clark where he's basically saying they believe they're in a position to win. They believe they can win the division, and he's going to make moves to improve this team. He has about 10 days to do it. I can't wait to see what transpires over these next 10 days with the Flyers and Phillies. One team's in midseason trying to make a pennant run. One's in the offseason. Nonetheless, trade rumors, blockbuster trades are always fun to help improve the teams in Philadelphia. Speaking of trade rumors, again, let's move things along here. Little background adjustment here. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. So as I said in the beginning of the show, it's not breaking news. It's not a breaking news story to anybody. But Adam Schefter reported late last week that if and when the Deshaun Watson accusations and the legal situation clears and settles up, the Philadelphia Eagles are the most equipped team to go and get him. But then he also followed it up by saying they will be making a strong push for him when those situation clears up. And again, this has been a very interesting topic on Twitter lately, in Eagles Twitter lately, and I'm not quite understanding it. If it's because of the off the field accusations, or if they're true, I understand why you don't want Deshaun Watson. I don't want him either then. But the people, shout out Jason, who I interacted with earlier on Twitter. I know he's boys with Scotty and Phil. And we'll have to get him on and have this conversation sometime because it'll be fun. But there's people out there that are like, we got to see what we have in Jalen Hurts. And I think Jalen Hurts is the guy. Dude, Deshaun Watson is 25 years old. 25. We all talk about the youth with Ben Simmons and how he's only 24, and that's what everyone hangs their hats on to get because he's still got all this time. Deshaun Watson's 25. Deshaun Watson is already a proven top 5 to 6, 7 quarterback, in my opinion, in this league. Has the ceiling to be higher and better if he's not on a shit organization like the Houston Texans with a better offensive line and weapons. You go and do that. What you're
Yeah.
what you're hanging your hat on then, Gint, is that you think Jalen Hurts can be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And listen, I'm not saying he won't be. I'm not saying he can't be. But you have no proof. You have no fact, no background you're just hoping. There's nothing that you've seen or that shows that Jalen Hurts can reach that right now, as of right now. And the other thing is, guys, there's been no word on the legal situations. So and it's almost training camp. You're going to get your year of Jalen Hurts. You're going to see what Jalen Hurts has. And then you make the move for Deshaun Watson. It's not happening in 2021. And listen, and I get this. And I just mentioned this. You're going to get that year because there's no way the Watson legal situation clears up in a month from now and then the Eagles are on the phones. It's not going to happen for a couple more months, in my opinion. So you're going to have that year. What I'm saying is, if it did clear up, if it was over right now, no, you don't got to give Jalen Hurts 1 year. Why? So then another team goes and trades for Deshaun Watson and you miss out on that opportunity? He's a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. He's 25 freaking years old. He's a stud. He's a superstar. And he propels your team to the best team in the division right now. Maybe Jalen Hurts can be that. Maybe Jalen Hurts can be better. I'm telling you, if you try to tell me you've seen that Jalen Hurts can be better, you're lying to me and you're lying to yourself.
I agree with everything you just said. Again, this is all speculation if it were to be figured out, aka the legal situation. But
yeah, this is from
you're doing yourself, and like we just mentioned, a disservice by not trying to make a pennant run for the Phillies. You're doing yourself a disservice by not getting Deshaun Watson. Like you said, he's proven to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He's a superstar. He's a roster-changing, game-changing. He's everything. He's everything you want in a quarterback at this point. So I don't see why it's even a discussion on if the move should be made. I don't see the reason you should give Hurts a year with him. But like you said, it's not going to happen this year.
And that's what I want to know from people because I don't understand it. Like, from a truly football perspective, forget the off-the-field crap, right? If that's true, no, I don't want him to be a Philadelphia Eagle, okay? But from a purely football standpoint, if you're trying to sit here and tell me I don't want the trade for Deshaun Watson as an Eagles fan because I got to see what Jalen Hurts has in him, guys, what are we doing here? Seriously. Philly Talk Podcast, that's true, but when we lose these vets in the next year, we got a lot of holes to fill. Listen, okay. I understand that. And I've been a huge advocate of saying that, Gint knows this, that this year should be nothing other than figuring out if Jalen Hurts is the guy or not. Because then you have those potentially 3 first-round draft picks in 2022. You can fill those holes. If you have Jalen Hurts on that cheap rookie deal still, which you will, you'll have a ton of cap space next season after you get off the Carson Wentz, salary still. After you get him off the books. But my point is, while I say that, if a guy of Deshaun Watson's caliber falls into your lap, if Houston's on the phone saying, you give me this, this, and this, Deshaun Watson is playing at the Link next year, you can't wait. You can't pass it up. Forget that you got to see what you have in Jalen Hurts. No, you don't.
Deshaun Watson makes holes look much smaller when you're that good.
Yes. Listen, the Eagles are not I don't think the Eagles are a very well designed roster right now. They are not a very good team. The Houston Texans they might not win a game this year. Deshaun Watson was able to win 4, 5, 6 games with that roster last year, with that offensive line, with that head coach, with no running game. They traded away DeAndre Hopkins, and after that, Will Fuller became his number 1 wide receiver. They had no defense, and he still found ways to win games. The Eagles aren't a very good team, but you had Deshaun Watson to Miles Sanders to Devontae Smith to Dallas Goedert behind Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, and Jason Kelsey. Yeah, now we're cooking. And then guess what? Then, the defense is still a big if, but that's a lot different. And that's just where I'll leave it. And no, I know people are going to turn around and they watch this and they see this, I'm a Hurts hater, or when Jalen Hurts, if the trade never happens, if Jalen Hurts starts to succeed, they'll try to say that I don't like Jalen Hurts or I said this, so I can't root for Jalen Hurts. It's not what I'm saying. I'm hopeful that you're all right. I want Jalen Hurts to be that guy. I didn't read this yet, but let's see. Watson is a top 5 and better than Hurts, but as we just saw, a roster that has holes and Watson still won 4 games. Right now, yeah, Slay, Brooks, Lane, McLeod, Cox, Graham. What happens if we don't fill them? They'll get filled. Listen, because here's what I'd have to look at it. If those, I don't even know. I'm assuming those are the names that come off the books next year. I don't even know when they're free agents.
Is he alluding to us giving up picks to get Watson? I don't really.
Yes, what he's alluding to is that we'd give up those picks to get Watson, and then we're
Okay.
going to lose after this year. A bunch of guys become free agents, and where are we really going to fill those holes? Because whatever. My point is, if Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles go out and make the splash move for Deshaun Watson, they're telling you they're trying to win. The retool or the rebuild, whatever you want to call it right now, we'll call it a retooling. That timeline just got speeded up by 1,000 years, okay, by light years. So they will fill those holes. Howie Roseman is not, is not a great GM by any stretch of the imagination. But if he can do one thing, it's, pushing money to future years, figuring out the salary cap, doing whatever it is. But thank you so much, man. Good work. Just love the talking point. One day, come on my show. Gladly reach out to me on Twitter. My @, name is right there. I would love to come on your show and talk more about it and whatever else you want to talk about. But I think that's going to wrap up today's episode of the Phaithful Fanatics. Skint. Thank you so much to Jason Myrtetus for coming on and giving us the details and what the Flyers are getting in Ryan Ellis. And we will be back at it tomorrow, 5:00 here on the Phaithful Fanatic Show, exclusively on DSM Media. So, guys, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Please follow us on Twitter at DSM_media. Give Gin a follow, give myself a follow, and have a nice night.